Okay. We have 102 minutes on here.
Okay.
Is that enough for you?
I hope so.
Perfect. Okay. Sydney, go right ahead.
Okay, please tell us about your background with the Kutztown community.
Well, I've been here in town since 1999. Originally, I came as part of a group that was starting a new church in town. There was a church outside of Reading that wanted to plant a church in Kutztown, partly because the university was here, and so I was going to seminary at the time, and that was a pretty cool opportunity just to be part of a brand new church. And so ended up bringing our family here and just kind of fell in love with the town.
So that kind of ties into why have you chosen Kutztown to live and work?
It started out with the church, but you know, as we kind of got involved and our kids got involved in the school district, I mean, my wife worked at a bank and I was working in the church, and we just kind of just started getting to know people, and I love the small town feel, and you know, you kind of, there's familiar faces everywhere you go, compared to like big city life. So it's a community, and so I just like the community that it really is, and being able to be part of it, seeing people work together, like through Kutztown Strong and stuff like that. So the other thing I appreciate is what's going on with the university in the town, trying to, you know, build that bridge and you know, to have that be one and not two separate things that are looking at each other with distrust, or you know, there's a lot of efforts that are going to bring that together, so I appreciate that.
Could you explain how the concept of service relates to Kutztown and what you do with your line of work along with organizations you are involved in?
Service. Yeah, I was thinking about that question. I'm glad I got these ahead of time, by the way. I think service in Kutztown, just as everybody kind of does what they do well, we serve each other. It's not just I'm doing what I want for me, but example, I met with a mechanic this morning who he wants to offer free or reduced services to people who are in financial need, you know, and he has a skill that I don't have, but he wants to use that to serve. So we were talking about that this morning, and so I think people with that kind of heart make Kutztown a great place. You know, he's just one example, wanting to use his skills to serve. So I think that's pretty awesome to be able to interact with people like that and cooperate. I'm a pastor in town. I do counseling, so I have interaction with really needy people sometimes, and sometimes their car breaks down. You know, so to be able to work together with other people like that is pretty neat to be able to do.
What can you tell us about churches and what they mean to the Kutztown community?
I think churches, one of the things that churches do is they kind of connect us with our history, kind of our roots, and they connect us as a town with our need for God, a reminder that God is part of this whole thing too. So, like, there's a bunch of churches in town. They're all different. There's a ton of variety. I'm from one of the newest churches in town. We're almost 20 years old now, and you know, there's other churches that are like pushing 300. You know, but all the churches are part of something bigger. It's not like Trinity. They're their church, and Cornerstone. We're our church, but we're part of one church. We're part of the church, which is like 2,000 years old. So I think that's a huge thing. Part of my heart, my passion, ever since I became the lead pastor, is to see churches work together. And when I first started, I kind of called churches islands of independence. Like it's just like we don't even know what each other's doing, and it's not supposed to be that way. You know, it's not competition. It's not trying to like compete for other people. Like we want to take your people, or you know, we want to have the most people. It's more like we're all serving the common good.
So you see Kutztown as one of the places where the churches work together? in the
It's
community?
becoming that more so than it was before. So I think that's really a good thing. You know, as pastors get to know each other and, you know, we meet once a month and we pray together and just kind of share struggles, and we do different things where churches can get together, whether it's through a marriage class or a parenting seminar, budgeting. You know, we've done all those kinds of things together. It's just a good thing to not be competing but be collaborating. So it's happening more than it used to.
How would you describe Kutztown to someone who has never visited?
Someone who's never visited. I think I asked my wife that one. My wife had a pretty good answer to that. She described it as the four-way intersection where small-town America, Pennsylvania Dutch farmers, progressive university education, and growing families all come together.
That's a good description.
Yeah, she's pretty
That's,
smart.
How does our community's history or heritage affect who we are and what we do today?
See if I can find that question here. Okay. History and heritage, who we are, what we do.
Do you see that in the churches? Well, your work at the church, like, do you, obviously, and to some degree or the next, people are going to bring their heritage to you, who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that's pronounced, like you just feel it or see it that this is Kutztown and who people are? Is there anything special about it, or not? Maybe not.
I think, well, because we're a younger church, we don't have generations of families that have been there for 150 years. We don't have that. What I do see and what I've learned is I am a transplant myself. You know, I was up in Clark Summit for a while. I grew up in Vermont, so I didn't grow up in Kutztown. But what I've seen as like Pennsylvania Dutch families have come into the church, you know, there's kind of this idea from a transplant's perspective that it's really hard to get to know a Pennsylvania Dutch. They keep to themselves, but what I've found is there's this deep loyalty in the Pennsylvania Dutch that when they get to know you, when you get to know them, like, you become family. You become brought in. There's not a wall, you know, where sometimes outsiders might feel like that. It's not really the way it is as you get to know them. There's a openness and
It takes some
acceptance.
time
Yeah.
to get to that point.
Yeah.
My wife's Italian, so they're the opposite.
Yeah.
Not the stereotype, but so
Right.
from day one, it's
Right.
like hugs and kisses. And,
Yeah.
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 What would you consider to be the values of the Kutztown community?
Some of the values I thought about tradition for sure, the folk festival and the heritage that we have. Keeping things as they are, like when Walmart wants to come in or McDonald's or, you know, just like, let's keep things nice. But I think there's also a value of acceptance and, you know, including variety and diversity. Music is a huge value, which I'm really thankful for because that was a value for me growing up, and my kids are in the music program, and so music and education like are big values, which are really helpful.
Do you see that as a value of the town or more the school district or both? Music? Some people have talked about the arts in general being a value.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see that in town as like different drama groups are kind of just springing up, and there's a lot of support for that. The university has some of that too.
Yeah.
We have a few college students that attend our church, and they're all music students. They all play string instruments, and like I love that orchestra kind of stuff.
Does it play off one another? Like you mentioned, your wife put it there in a pretty cool way, but do you sense that or feel that you know, the art, let's say the arts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what KU brings and what the town brings, what your church might bring, what the school district might bring.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see synergy there, or is it more fragmented?
I think it can be fragmented, and a lot of times it is. There's kind of separate worlds going on. One of the cool things about the church is that that's a place where it comes together. I mean, at least in the church I'm a part of, you know, we have been so blessed by college students. Like, college students that are like, they may be education majors, or they just love kids, and like, Abby is not my daughter, but another Abby, she just graduated, but she'd come back from Christmas break, and all the little kids in the church just like, and just like hugging, and like, you know, they'll babysit my kids, and just have built friendships, like to the point now where some former KU students, they're like second parents to my kids. They'll have sleepovers at their house just because they want to. So that's a real strong part of the church when students and families come together. It breaks that down. I think there are other channels where that happens too. As a whole, it's kind of a fragmented thing. A college student comes from Philadelphia or Stroudsburg or wherever they come from, and they don't know anybody, and that's their clique, that's their culture. But when you break through that and get into, I'm a big fan of multi-generational community, and so when college students make connections with families or other people from town, just it's a really good thing in both directions. So I've been blessed, they've been blessed. It can just be really, really good.
Okay. Are there any stories or memories that you could share that exemplify the essence of Kutztown?
Yeah, I thought about one. I was at the quality shop the other day, and there's a guy, his name's Jody. I don't know if you've ever met him, but he walks, and he's disabled to some degree or something, but he's sitting at the bench outside a quality shop, and I was on my way out just saying hi to him, and almost everybody who walked in, elderly folks coming in for breakfast, just about every one of them knew him by name. Hey Jody, hey Jody, hey Jody, how are you, Jody? And he's a friendly guy. Like, if you drive past him, like, he's trying to make eye contact with every car that goes by. You know, so I make a point to wave to him and, you know, talk to him when I can. But he's somebody that people might look at as, you're not offering anything to this community. But it's not true. You know, he's a person, and a bunch of people know him, and he cares about them, they care about him. So that was a story that shows that just the community that's here. Like, everybody matters. Everybody matters. And I don't think he has a job, but it doesn't matter.
What defines our community?
What defines our community? That was a hard one. I'm not sure how to answer that question. How have other people answered?
I don't know.
If you think in terms of maybe values, you know, and you spoke to a couple there, but you know, what if you had to name the core values or describe the core values or the value of Kutztown?
I think community is a big value. Just we're not a tiny community. Like, I grew up in a town of 300. We had a post office and a general store in Vermont. That was it. So that was a tiny community. We're more of a town, but there's still that small feel. So I think the smallness, the unique blend of Pennsylvania Dutch and university culture, like, that has come together here.
So you see community through the university, through your church. You know, you're involved with Kutztown Strong. I would assume that that's part of the community feel.
Yeah. And like, even university professors, it's not just, they don't just stay in the university world. They're investing. They're involved in borough council, involved in Kutztown Strong, involved in other other things. And a lot of times they're also parents, so they form a bridge between university and and local community. So that, there's several parents that are professors that bring that together.
Kutztown's also known for its events, with the Kutztown Cruise or Dinner on Main. What can you speak of those events and what that means to Kutztown from your perspective?
Well, the folk festival's the biggest one.
Yeah.
People come from everywhere to see that, and that's also tends to be like the gateway into the working world for 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds. They get to try their hand out at working, and one of the folks in our church, their brother makes brooms, and so he is at the festival every year making brooms, so the people that help out with that. So that's something that, from the outside perspective, that defines Kutztown. They're like, oh, you guys have the folk festival, which is a big event, and it does kind of emphasize the values and the history and kind of who we are, where we came from.
What about Kutztown Strong? Can you speak to that effort and what that might mean to Kutztown?
Yeah, I think just the fact that it was born and has done so much reveals the heart of Kutztown, that we care. We care. We want to make a difference. When the need was brought to everyone's attention, hey, there's some serious problems here. A lot of people came out. A lot of people didn't just come out once, but came out again and again and again and again, and put their minds together and put their hearts together, and creativity and energy and time, and to see things happen, to see not just let's talk about it. And that was the best thing I think about Kutztown Strong when it first started, was we're going to do stuff. And there are no hoops to jump through. You want to do something, do it. If it's going to be through the churches, great. If it's going to be through this organization, whatever. You are a person and you want to do something, do it. It was just, let's get some things happening to get the ball rolling. And I think that's what made it work, because people felt like they were really making a difference, not just endless brainstorm or just theorizing about what we could do, but it was action immediately. And I got involved in that because it was, I come from a faith-based perspective, so whether you put this in the book or not doesn't matter, but God was orchestrating things, in my view, where we had, as a church, had already started some conversations like, how can we make a difference in our community? What can we do? We're a church, and sometimes churches are just like, well, that's over there and that's for them, and this is me and this is for me, and if you like that stuff, great, but no, we want to make a difference in the community. So we had decided, well, let's ask community leaders. So we had a lunch, and we had Judge Greth, and we had Mr. Brown, and we had police representation, and just 5 or 6 community leaders come together. We just asked them, what do you think a church can do to make a difference in the community? And they gave us some thoughts, they gave us some ideas, and the one thing that they said in that meeting was a youth center, some kind of a place for kids. And it was right on the heels of that the big Kutztown Strong event happened that became Kutztown Strong. And so we were already thinking about youth center, and at that event everybody was saying, we need a place for middle school kids, a place for kids to hang out where they're not going to get in trouble, where they can have some support and that sort of thing. So Oasis started as a result of both of those things coming together at the perfect timing. It was at the exact same time that those things happened. So that was very affirming for me. I think we're on the right track. I think this is something we should do, because we want to not just be come to our church and have church services. Kutztown Strong is the same way. We can become even like that in Kutztown Strong. Come to Kutztown Strong, come to our church services, but it's not about coming to our meetings, it's about what are we doing. And I think the church in a lot of ways is the same way. What are you doing? So that's kind of what got me fired up about, like, hey, it looks like God's orchestrating some things here, and this makes sense, and we can do something that really, really matters.
So taking action in the community in Kutztown is a big part.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we want our lives to matter. You know, just accumulating money is not it. Accumulating people in churches, that's not it. It's when you actually help somebody improve their life, help them overcome a wall that they're hitting. And we do a lot of counseling in our ministry, and you know, find people that are stuck in addictions, or they're really going down a road that's not going to end well. You know, so when you get involved in that kind of thing, it doesn't always work, you know, but it's we keep doing it because sometimes it does. You know, and people can see their lives really change.
You had mentioned Oasis. Could you describe what that is?
Oasis is basically an after-school opportunity for middle school and high school kids, just to go, and they can work on homework, they can get support there, they can just hang out, play games. There's outdoor stuff, there's indoor stuff, no matter what the weather is, and there's just adults there who care. So if they need help with homework, or they just had a breakup, or stuff's happening at home, like we've had kids, their parents passed away, and you know, they're there at Oasis talking about what's going on, and there's an adult there, other students there. It's not just adults, you know, but other students there who, you know, can listen and be support. So that's 3 days a week right now, and it's started through multiple churches getting on board with, yeah, we want to make this happen. And there's been tons of support in the community and through the school district, like, yeah, this is a good thing, we're going to announce it, we're going to talk about it, we're going to let it be known that this is there. And we still, pretty much every week, there's a student there's never been there before. Like, yeah, my friend wanted me to check it out with them, and so it can become kind of a afternoon home for some students who may end up getting in trouble otherwise, or you know, go places they probably don't want to go. So it's still building, still growing, and we'd love to see an actual facility with a gym and with, you know, all kinds of, you know, that costs a whole lot of money, which we don't have right now, but for now, what we can do is provide a place, and a warm place, a place to hang out, a place to do what they want to do, and get support too.
And right now that's being held at?
Right now it's at the Bethel Church of the Nazarene, which is like across the grass from the middle school. It's about the closest location you can have aside from emptying out somebody's house. It's like right there. Which we didn't really want to have it at a church, because that kind of has its own, you want to go to the church for, not necessarily. So
for a while, wasn't it at the library?
It was at the library, yeah. It started there. And then they kind of wanted to do other things with that space, so we had to find a new spot, which is closer. It is closer. But like I said, I mean, if money were no option, we'd build something and have gym facilities and study rooms and computers and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So someday that might happen. Could happen.
Wow, it might.
Yeah. What I thought more about with this defining the community was just the secondary question about how it could be redefined or reshaped. And I wouldn't expect this to go in the book, but just like based on my beliefs, I think that what would be most helpful for any community is to get back, to get recentered on what our foundation is. Like going back to our founding fathers and, you know, the religious freedom, but even in some of those documents, just recognizing we have a creator, recognizing there's a God who made us. You know, when you get away from the idea of of a God being part of this, and the alternatives, there's no God, then it's kind of like a free-for-all, and values are just defined by anybody, whatever they are, and historically that doesn't go well. When anybody just defines their own values however they want them to be, when there's a God over that who's a good God, who has good design for us and created good rules. It's kind of like in a school, the leadership in the school, they set up rules that are for the good of the students. It's not because they want to gain out of that, it's because they want the best for the students, and God is the same way. It's kind of a picture of that same thing, where he's given us standards, he's given us laws and rules that are really for our good so that life goes well. A school functions when everybody kind of works together under the same understanding. When they don't, then that's part of why you're here.
That's right.
So I think, getting back to that, like I just looked up a couple of comments. The Declaration of Independence, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. They put that into that divine providence, like God is supernaturally overseeing this kind of thing. All men created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. I think this isn't just Kutztown, this is just our country. We've slipped off that foundation, and
how do you feel with Kutztown? Do you feel a sense of that?
I don't think it's as much here. I think part of the staying connected with our roots and our history, and like the people that have come up for Kutztown Strong, like very many of them are active in churches and have that sense. So it's better here, but as a whole, like when you see the breakdown of the family and kids struggling at home when parents aren't there, like sometimes there's just like chasing after more money as they're working all the time, and then kids are abandoned, alone, and that's not just because they need to be watched, but because they need adults to be close to them. That's why my wife and I decided before we even had kids, I don't care how hard it's going to be, but my wife is going to be home when the kids are not in school, because that adult interaction, like we just made that sacrifice. We're going to deal with having one car. We're going to live in a house that's not as big as we could afford if we had 2 jobs. But that was a value that we decided on. That's not to say everybody has to do that, but I think, getting back to family and, would lead to more stability, more strength. Average, look at average communities, I think we're stronger than most in terms of those things. And, you can't help certain things happen, and, certain people struggle. So when a community is strong, we can come alongside. And somebody doesn't have a dad in the picture, well, there are other dads that can come along and bring them in, because that's just going to be anywhere. So that's the kind of community that that we want to foster and just see grow stronger and stronger. As kids need help, sometimes they need a counselor, and sometimes they just need people in their life.
Are you involved, or how much are you aware of the Optimist Club? You talked about dads, and knowing a lot of people who are involved with that club. That's one of their mission is really youth.
Yeah.
We have the Rotary Club and the Lions Club, and can you speak to any of those involvements?
I don't know a lot about like Rotary and Lions. I know about the Optimist Club and some of the things that they do, and the athletics that they put together, and some of the events that they do, and ways that they give, and the way scholarships, and so there's a lot of good stuff going on with that, and a lot of men have risen up to be involved, to be connected and engaged, not just with their own kids. So that's a pretty strong thing in this community. I'm not directly involved, but they're a strong component of our town. Yeah.
Sydney, any other questions?
I don't think so. I think that covered it.
What class do you have now?
Mrs. Westgate. Well, is it still 11?
We're switching to period 12
Mrs.
right
Westgate.
now. Get you up there in a minute.
Um,
What do you foresee in the future? If you could, the crystal ball of 20 years down the road, what do you see for Kutztown?
What do I see? I'm not a good crystal ball kind of guy, but I think, you know, as Kutztown Strong is making a difference, and the values that are here, the Bible says, like, when you're doing the right things, that gets passed on to the third and fourth generation. And so I think doing some of those right things, that's going to have a positive effect on the next generation, which is going to then pass it on to the next generation. So some of those things that are happening now are making a difference, and it's not just a difference today. It's making a difference for your grandkids. And I think that's really true. The opposite's also true when you make bad decisions, when you go down the wrong path, that affects the next generation and the generation after that. So I think we're making some good strides that are going to make a lasting difference. So when your grandkids are reading this book, they can be like, hey.
Good. Thank you. Good answer.
Sure.
Like that.
My pleasure.
Good stuff. All right. You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for including me.
Sydney has to go.